Good evening, and welcome to the March 7, 2012 meeting of the Lake Forest Building Review Board. I am Peggy Vignocchi, Chairman of the Building Review Board. At this time, I ask members of the board to please introduce themselves.
Michael Bleck.
Maddie Dugan, 3rd Ward.
Steuart Trey, 2nd Ward.
Monica Ruggles, 1st Ward.
Charlie King.
John Clair.
And would staff please introduce themselves?
Megan O'Neill.
Kathy Cerniak.
Thank you. The board is here tonight to work together with all of you, property owners, architects, neighbors, and interested citizens, to continue the long tradition that allows Lake Forest residents and businesses to work together to preserve the qualities and the unique character that make Lake Forest a special community. We recognize the personal importance of each petitioner's request. Our goal is to respect the needs and desires of property owners while balancing the interests of the community as a whole to preserve and enhance its architectural character and landscaped streetscapes. For those of you who may not be familiar with the Building Review Board, the types of projects that come before this board are those in which the property owners are requesting a variance to allow a home that is larger than permitted by the code, are seeking a demolition permit and approval of a replacement structure, or otherwise involve issues that could not be fully resolved by city staff. It is important to note that over 95% of building permits are issued by the city without the need for any board review. Thus, the board typically deals with the most challenging and sometimes controversial projects. The City of Lake Forest is committed to conducting open and fair meetings. To achieve that goal, the board has adopted meeting procedures, and all parties will be provided an opportunity to speak. These procedures are outlined on the agendas available at the back of the room. This meeting is also broadcast on cable television. Speaking on behalf of the entire board and city staff, our objective is to provide a review process that is thorough, fair, and without unnecessary delay. The next order of business is the approval of the minutes of the February 2nd, 2012 regular meeting and executive session. Do I hear a motion for approval of the meeting minutes for the regular meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so passed. Do I hear a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session from the February 1st, 2012 meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is an item for the consent agenda. It's a request for approval of refinements to a previously approved plan for a replacement structure at 320 South Green Bay Road. The owners are Megan and Patrick Winters, and the representative is Susan Rolander, architect. At this time, I'd like to ask Megan O'Neill to present this for discussion for the board.
Chairman, items on the consent agenda are taken to a vote unless a member of the board or a member of the public wishes to remove it for presentation. So it'd be appropriate for you to ask that question and then head to a vote.
Thank you. Are there any, is there anyone from the public who wishes to have any comments or questions regarding this petition? Hearing none. Is there anyone on the board who has any questions or comments regarding this petition?
I guess I have a question. In our packet, we're provided one set of elevations, and I'm assuming that this is the set of elevations that is the proposed look. It would have been nice to be able to compare what they had in front of the board to what we're now presented with. At least my packet, I only have one set of elevations.
The board packet should have had a set of the refined elevations as well as those that were approved by the Building Review Board. I could pass around the proposed elevations.
Yeah, I think we do have the ones from the approved ones. Right, those are the ones we do have, are the approved
One
ones.
says BRB approved.
Right. And the new one is just this, the one page showing the one, it just shows the one elevation. Is that correct, Megan?
This is new stuff? You have this?
That's your copy.
These are the like duplicates. Oh.
The information that I just passed out is not new information. It's information that should have been provided in your packet last week.
But
So
it wasn't.
it might be duplicate to what is in your packet. I'm not sure if there was an error in sending it out.
No, it was not in the packet.
It was not
Was
in my
not.
packet.
Oh, yeah, we have the BRB approved, we didn't have the new stuff.
Madam Chairman, there are two options that the board could take that I see. You could hold this to the end of the agenda and give the board a couple minutes at that time to review the information, or postpone it to the next BRB meeting for consideration. I do know that this item has been submitted for permit and is currently in the review process. The information before you this evening are changes that resulted from the board's discussion, and I do know the owners are hoping to move forward with their project.
Thank you, Megan. I believe that I personally did see this ahead of time and thought it should come before the consent agenda, and it was consistent with what our minutes and our directions were from that meeting. It just had a lot of new drawings, so I thought it would be a nice thing to bring before the board. So, in all fairness to the petitioner, I would like to just put it at the end of our agenda, and hopefully we can have a little bit of chance to look at this at the end.
Additionally, the architect is present this evening, so if the board does wish for a presentation, the architect is available to do that.
Great, that would be excellent.
Is someone available to explain the changes, or do we have to try to discern this from
No,
the
architect's
set of
here.
drawings?
The architect.
The
Okay.
architect is here, and you certainly
All right,
can wish
okay.
for a
Then
request a
fine.
presentation.
I'm
Okay.
with that.
Okay, thank you. So we will table this agenda item to the end of the agenda for later this evening. Thank you, everyone. With that, then, we will move on to agenda item number 4, which is a continued petition, which is a request for approval of new signage and awnings for At Properties, a new real estate office located at 600 Northwestern Avenue. The owner is Thomas Koenig. The tenant and representative is Jimmy Shannon from At Properties. Or a change.
Excuse me?
You may step forward for your presentation. Thank you.
This is our sign guy, so we would like him to come up to
Excellent.
give you variations
Okay.
that we made.
And please state your name.
Steve Grant,
From,
Image Art Sign.
great, thank you so much.
So what we're requesting is 2 awnings.
Please use the
What
microphone.
we're requesting is 2 awnings.
Thank you.
And a plywood sign above the entry. The changes that we made from the original drawing that you guys saw, we made the plywood sign above the entry smaller within your guys' city regulations. And then we detailed more on what the awning is, how the awning would be mounted to above the 2 storefront windows. And everything seems to be within your city's ordinance. Per your guys' recommendation, you guys asked that our logo would not be placed on the awning. Within consistency within the community, Caribou Coffee has their logo on the awning as well. The logo is within your guys' city size requirements as well. And I think within the vicinity, I think aesthetically, it looks great, and it doesn't, we're not reinventing the wheel, doing something different outside of what the city already has within the vicinity.
Great, thank you. At this time, we can have staff comment on the presentation.
Thank you, Chairman. There have been some significant changes to this petition since the board last saw this last month. The previously proposed submittal, or the board had a lot of questions about the previous submittal, and most of those have been addressed with this current submittal. They are now proposing a band sign above the door, similar to a band sign that was installed down the street on Western Avenue. It's brown tone with white lettering, off-white lettering. The size and location of the sign is compliant with the sign ordinance as well as the design guidelines. Additional information has been received on the location and detailing of the awning. At the previous meeting, staff had some concerns and questions about how the awning was going to be installed. I think the information submitted in your packets have really addressed that information, and we can support the awnings at this time. Instead of crossing over the window, they will be tucked into the window frame and designed to fit the size of the window. Staff is recommending that the board approve the awnings without the text on the valance. The board at the last meeting had some discussion about whether or not that would be appropriate, and asked that the petitioner provide a rendering showing the full signage requests, both with and without the text. I think the board, when reviewing signage requests such as this, really has to balance the unique character of Lake Forest with the tendency to over-commercialize a storefront, and really make sure that what's being proposed is consistent with our downtown and appropriate for the individual storefront. Given the type of business, the location of the sign, and the size and prominence of the band sign, the addition of text on the awnings doesn't seem to be helping the signage request, and I think right now staff is recommending approval without that. Other than that, the band sign and the awnings are supported, and we are recommending approval of the sign at this time.
I have 2 comments to make. Is it possible?
Is it
Questions?
comments that, or we have time for you to have time after,
Okay.
but we'll ask you questions
I'm
now.
new to
and then-
this, so I
there
don't know
you
the
go.
process, so I
That's
apologize.
fine, thank you, not a problem. At this time, we will take it to the board for any questions or clarifications to the petitioner or staff.
I have a question for staff. The Caribou Coffee, which is north of this building, is that in the historic district? Rather, and this building is not?
That's correct.
Okay, because the Caribou Coffee has a similar sign on the wall. They also have lettering on the awnings, which is white, which is very striking. And I guess my question is, to be consistent, are we being fair asking them to not put their black lettering, which I think is their intent, on their awnings, should they choose to do that? They also have open-end awnings, I think they've designed, whereas Caribou are closed on the side, and they have lettering on the fringe on that also. So my question is, is staff being fair, where the historic district allowed them to do it, apparently allowed Caribou to do it, for us to not allow them to do it? I think if I wanted it and were these people, I would be a little upset.
Certainly, that's something that the board should discuss. I think
Okay.
the board was mixed at the last meeting, and typically we err on the side of recommending less signage, just to enhance and keep the character of Lake Forest.
But Caribou already has it. It's there. So, and the historic district, which I always had the feeling were tougher than we were, should, I would have trouble if I were the petitioner and wanted to have that done. I'd grumble. So, that's my opinion.
Let me clarify, is the petitioner's request to have the name, the logo on the valance of the awnings?
Correct, and it would be, we're proposing white lettering, not
Oh,
black
you are?
lettering.
Okay, well then you're as bad as Caribou.
That's bad. Okay, so,
And One other the staff's recommendation was brown signage and green awnings. As far as an aesthetic value, I would think to be all brown or all green. I think it would look better. So that's our suggestion, you know, instead of having dual coloring, I think that's a little bit too deceiving.
Are you willing to, what's your request? Is it one or the other and you don't care? Or I just want to be clear what your original request is.
Our original request was 2 green awnings with our logo on the awnings and
Right.
a green sign.
And a
with
green
our-
sign, okay.
Yes,
Okay,
just to be consistent.
that's fair. I just want to be
Yeah.
clear on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I did have a question about the green color that is in our packet. Do you believe that to be a true representation of the actual color green, or do you have
No,
a
it's,
sample?
that green fabric it's a fairly standard fabric, green umbrella. Everybody uses, just about everybody uses the same material. So it probably is exactly the same material you see all over.
We would make sure it'd be
Downtown.
consistent and be what we're called Lake Forest green. So it'd be, definitely, we'd make sure that the fabric and the Pantone was consistent with the rest of the buildings within that area.
Because in this image, it's kind of
The-
coming
there-
across
It's
as a bright
printers
limey
and,
green.
and graphic programs.
Okay. But to clarify then, you would prefer the sign then to be green with
would
the
pref-
awning, or brown awnings and a brown
I
sign?
prefer a green awnings and a green sign, just out of consistency.
Green sign with white lettering or off-white lettering?
Off-white lettering.
So is that what we're judging? Is it a green sign, not a brown sign?
I
should be one
believe
of the
so.
first.
And another question for the petitioner. If you have those, this lettering on the valance of the awning,
Yes.
on both awnings and your sign, are you within the allowable square footage of the sign ordinance?
We should be.
The lettering on the balance is, I think, 4 inches by, it's pretty small. It's either 4 by 12 or 4 by 18 inches.
14
for
by
each-
18.
Okay.
I'm sorry, 4 by 18 inches. So,
Megan, do you know if they would be within the allowable?
Based on the information we've received, it's within the allowable size.
Great, okay, thank you.
I have a question as to why you would want, I just want to make sure that I understand you correctly. You would like off-white lettering on the sign, but white lettering on the valance?
It would be off-white as well. I apologize. We would, whatever, we can do white lettering or off-white lettering. I think white lettering, off-white lettering would look more sophisticated and classic with the style of the building, but it would be per your guys' recommendation and
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I understood what your
yes.
hopes were.
I had a question, more or less regarding your business and the presentation you have to the community is for marketing, I'm assuming, or for people locating your, but I'm wondering how much of the people that come into your business, is it a destination business? Is there a vehicular draw that you need to, as people are driving by, you need to have them see you and stop and do like an impulse, I gotta stop in here? Or is it a pedestrian, hey, I'm walking around in town, by the way, I've got some time to kill? I mean, can you just describe the purpose of your signage as it relates to your business?
Our, something we do is sales and marketing. We take, we're pretty innovative the way that we market people's single-family homes. We don't do commercial up here. So the look, the aesthetics, our brand is just very important to us. And I think, you know, with having the green, the white or off-white lettering, and the recognition of our logo, especially going into a new community, I think that's repetition, the more it's there, and I think the sophistication of what we're proposing to you guys. With the cities.
So it's more of a brand identification than it is a merchandising marketing kind of a,
Aesthetics and branding, correct.
okay.
Yeah, Mary Kay.
I'm Mary Kay Runner-Darcy. I'm one of the agents at App Properties. And one of the things that is nice about their branding and other offices, we do a lot of training in the different offices, and a lot of the Winnetka agents, we had training today, some of the Winnetka agents came up and some of the Highland Park agents came up. And it's easier to see the property if you know, these people don't know 600 Western from a hole in the wall. So it's easier as you pull up to be able to see it on the awning than it is to look on the front of the office.
Good question.
I have a question for the petitioner. Tell me again, rather, and the example you have up there is brown with yellow lettering and yellow border. That's what you have up on the building.
It's off-white, it was
Or-
just.
Okay, an off-white, or
yeah.
whatever,
This
but
is
it's a
the
brown background.
Correct. We would
And
like.
now you're telling us you want green.
I originally wanted green from the beginning. Megan said the proposed, this is what you guys would accept. And so
Let me just clarify, the drawings that staff received all had the brown sign with the green awnings. So in
Uh-huh.
order to provide a complete package to the board, that was the information that we were able to submit. After the packet was put together and the staff report was written, the petitioner did indicate that they would prefer an all-green sign, but the information had been submitted to the board.
The green being the same color as close as you can match that the awnings would be,
exactly.
with the same off-white that you plan on, yeah.
Absolutely.
Is the green is that the corporate color?
It's nothing, our complete opposite of our corporate color.
It's not, so what is the corporate color?
Our corporate color is red,
It's
and the red at sign, and then our logo's properties is in black. So, red and black is our corporate color.
So why wouldn't you submit black awnings with the red
But
and the, I'm just
Going
curious.
around the whole entire city and looking
Okay.
at other signage, we want to be consistent and respectful to your community.
Okay, so you're going with green because Market Square mostly has green awnings, but Caribou, they have the brown awnings, which is closer to your adjacent,
Correct,
businesses.
correct.
Okay,
We wanted to be more consistent with the majority of the city.
okay.
I have one more color question, and it may be a computer printer issue. In the packet that we have, I wouldn't call that at properties off-white.
It-
Would you? I mean, is what you're thinking of?
It's not gonna be gold. I know
Okay.
it's goldish.
Is it gonna be more like the white that's used at the Caribou Coffee sign?
Yes, the off-white,
So there'd
not
be
a
some
mocha, but more of a cream.
more consistency between you and Caribou Coffee as far as color of signs.
Correct. It will be the same style of
Okay.
sign.
Ivory perhaps is good.
Pardon?
Ivory probably is a better description of the color.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Thank you. At this time, we invite anyone from the public to address regarding this petition. Seeing none. Does the petitioner have any response or any comments regarding anything right now?
Everything you guys
Okay.
asked was great. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any final questions from the board? Okay, then we will take it to discussion amongst the board. Thank you.
Thank you. What's the next step?
We're going to have a discussion here,
Uh-huh.
and then we can possibly bring a vote.
Thank you so much.
Great.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, Steuart, I'm hearing that you're in favor of...
Well, I guess I would be in favor of allowing them to have text on their awning in the off-white. And with the request for green, I guess I would have liked to seen a green one up there if that's what they wanted, but anyway, I don't know if I have a problem with green. tell me that the brown is better, I would listen to the argument. I don't know. I'd be in favor of, I guess, a green sign unless somebody can talk me out of that, and text on their awnings if they choose.
I agree. I think the awning and the sign should be the same color, regardless of which color is chosen. I think they should match, like they do at Caribou. And if they want green, I think the dark umbrella green with ivory is fine for both the lettering on the awnings is fine by me.
I agree with the comments. The only thing is on the awnings, I would tend to support the staff recommendation for the no text on the awnings. But you know, it's not a. I think I would support the staff's recommendation on that.
Okay, I think John had a good point and a good question. He was asking, you know, the purpose, and so I think that the logo or your name on the awnings provides a lot of extra visibility for vehicular traffic, so.
Well, and in studying this a little bit, I'm just driving around town, and I noticed, you know, signs that did have a name on the awning and those that didn't. And to me, there's something seemed to be missing on those that didn't. And I don't know, you know, if nobody had them, I wouldn't think that way. But when
Right.
some do and others don't, you know, I wonder about that. And as I'm driving, I'm looking, you know, more for an identification on these awnings, because that seems to be the obvious place to you know, give the name of the
Right.
shop underneath. And this @ symbol, and I read the minutes from the last meeting, you know, I know we're typically not allowed to do logos and that kind of thing, but I think that @ symbol has become so commonplace in our society since the computer that I just look at it as more of a letter than I do a logo.
That's fair.
If it was a flower or something that was truly a logo, I think I'd think other than that, but I have no issues with them putting it on the awning, and no issues with the green color on the sign and the ivory color on the lettering. So I would support this presentation.
Well, I appreciate the petitioner trying to match what the city's done. I like the sign above the door now. I think they've done a very nice job with that. I think the size and concept is very nice. I have to be honest with you, I would prefer brown for both the signage and the awning, just because it is so close to Caribou and it's such a prominent brown there. I think it would really match that stretch of Western a lot better if it was brown and matched the Caribou's thing. I think the green is just gonna look odd. They're so close together. They're very similar kind of structures, so I personally would prefer the brown.
And I can, not to interrupt you, but I can agree with that concept as well. And in my driving around, I noticed the green everywhere, and it's like I'm almost tired of the green. But
Yeah.
just to
Thank you, John.
reinforce your thought
Appreciate
on
that. I'm less excited about the logo on the logo/wording of the business on the awnings. I thought, John, what you were getting at was that Caribou typically has more, you know, true, you know, drop-by type retail where you want a cup of coffee, where am I going to go? I mean, typically when you don't drop in to buy a house. I think you plan to kind of go and show up for that. So I'm less excited. And part of it is, frankly, that the and the properties does have a logo feel to it, which I know we try to generally keep away from that. So if everybody else says, you know, go with the wording on the awning, I'm fine. But in general, I'm opposed to that and do like the brown.
I'm in support of the petition, and I agree a lot with Charlie. I do think that the awning color has a possibility of working better as brown, because that seems to be its own like business district. You know, once you kind of go south of Deer Path Road, the green awning stops. So I think just to be more unified with what's happening on the block, it seems to me that the brown awning would work a little bit better. And I have no problem with the name on the awning itself. I just think to get more business into the community would be a great thing, and it's consistent to Caribou. Caribou has it, so I think that this petition should be able to have it as well.
Okay, that's fair. I think the name on the awning is fine. In fact, I prefer it. We've even had striped awnings with the name on it, and I don't think it's too busy at all, and I think it does provide the visibility that you want for approaching vehicles. Regarding the color, I'm leaning more toward the green because it is more consistent with the rest of the town. I mean, if Caribou comes and goes, then you've suddenly, then are you sticking with something just because Caribou chose brown, as opposed to sticking with the color character that we mostly have around the rest of town. And I personally didn't care for that coloring of that brown sign, of the mock-up that was up there.
But I think part of the, at Market Square, there is green trim, and there's accents. Well, in Market Square itself, I think the green is more consistent there because of the buildings that are already there. These buildings, these kind of, English country, there's a lot of brown trim and brown accents on it, and thus I think that's why Caribou went with the brown. And, I mean, I'm fine, to have it green. I'm just suggesting that
And I
the
think
brown
the petitioner is
seems-
asking us to vote on green. Am I
Right.
correct in saying that? So
Okay.
maybe we should just vote on that.
Sure.
Yeah, I think, well, unless we think we're gonna have a great dissension on that, 'cause people are just kinda on the fence, then,
Either way.
okay.
Yeah, I would prefer it to be brown, but I would not deny the petition because of it being green.
I agree with that. I think brown would look nice, but if they went green, I wouldn't hold them up.
Okay. Hearing all that, do I hear a motion regarding this petition?
I'll make a motion. I make a motion that we allow the petitioner to put a sign up with a green background similar to the dark green of the awnings and an off-white or a cream-colored lettering, and green awnings with the same cream-colored off-white lettering on the balance of the open-ended awnings.
I second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Abstain? None. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. The next order of business is a new petition. A request for approval of the demolition of Moore Hall, a 60-bed student residence hall, and approval of a new 235-bed student residence hall, both on South Campus at Lake Forest College, 555 North Sheridan Road. Board review and approval of the overall site plan, architectural design, and exterior materials is requested. Board consideration of a landscape plan for this project will occur later in the process. The owner is Lake Forest College. Representative is James Curtin, Solomon, Caldwell, and Waynes. Benz.
Madam Chairwoman, if I may, I'm Steve Scott. I'm the president of the college, and
Yes,
I'd like
hello,
to just say thanks for the opportunity to be here tonight, and perhaps provide this context quickly before I turn it over to our architect, Jim Curtin. This is a very good time at the college, and we're in a period of, I guess, what I'd call careful, sustained growth. Our applications have more than doubled over the last decade, and we are looking to grow from presently 1,500 students to about 1,700 students in the next 5 years, 4 to 5 years. The challenge that we have is that our residential housing is inadequate for the number of students that we expect to enroll over that period of time. So we are looking to build a new residence hall on South Campus, which Mr. Curtin will describe to you. It will be the first new residence hall the college has built in more than 45 years. So it's been a long time since we've been before the board with this kind of a project. But we're very enthusiastic about it. It's very important for the college and for our future. And when Mr. Curtin is done, of course, he, I, other representatives here will be happy to take any questions from the board that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Jim Curtin from the architectural firm Solomon, Caldwell & Benz. And we're pleased to present the replacement housing for Moore Hall. Let me quickly go through a presentation that touches on all aspects for your consideration. First of all, where is the site? It's on South Campus. And currently on South Campus, this is Sheridan and this is Rosemary Road. You have 4 buildings that are clustered together that are called the quads. Those are student housing projects. And then you have, this is the building, and that's Moore Hall. It holds 60 students, and it's 20,000 square feet. Moore Hall is the building that we are looking for a demolition, authorized for demolition. A report, and I believe this is, Kathy, this was submitted to the board, the report by the architect concerning Moore Hall. All I can safely say is I agree wholeheartedly with that, the findings of that report. This has been a discussion point with the college and with us for a long time, and I think this project represents a great opportunity to deal with the challenges of Moore Hall, and if you read that report, it touches on all criteria that you are concerned about for demolition. And I could go into greater detail, but the report, I think, does a very good job. With 60 students in that square footage, you can see the building is 4.5 stories tall. But the narrowness of the footprint, the replacement, and the renovation or reuse, it no longer fulfills the current needs and trends that are student housing. Part of the request is to look at different alternates. What we did in this particular exercise was looked at the overall building size to accommodate the required number of beds for the college. And we looked at where could this building be placed. If you look at the east side here along Sheridan Road, with the allowable setback, it's not appropriate. The reason why it's not, it's too close to Sheridan Road, in my opinion. It also utilizes a property of recreation fields that is critical for student life on campus. That recreation field is right here, and it's used heavily by the students, also provides a great amenity for the students. When you look at it on the south side adjacent to the sports center, it does tend to crowd the sports center, but that is an area that has a lot of utilities and is heavily landscaped. And then finally, on the west side, this is a scale of the campus that is lower. It's more residential in character. The site plan that we feel is absolutely the very best for this project is located here. It actually utilizes the footprint of Moore Hall for one of the wings. And so it's a very familiar mass, and it's a very familiar presentation along Sheridan. To achieve the bed count that we're looking for, we did extend it to the north, but when you look at your overall setbacks, it's approximately 300 feet off of Sheridan Road and a little over 150 from Rosemary Road. There are other strategic benefits for its location here. One is there is from the master plan, a pedestrian spine was created for students going north and south on campus, and that's the spine right here. And so it connects with the sports center all the way up to Deer Path Hall up on the north. Secondly, the hall located here starts to form a village or a community for the students, all connected via this quadrangle that's in the middle. If we look at it a little closer, you can see that the playfields remain intact, the majority of the vegetation remains intact, and there's significant separation between the buildings, so the building is free all the way around. We've made a few adjustments to make sure that those separations are just right. Very briefly on the floor plan. The ground floor plan, you can see, is a balance of amenity space for the students. That's why we like to contain it in one building. The students form a community and share those amenity spaces, including a multi-purpose room in the entry, which is facing to the interior of the quad. If you look at the typical floor, these are the current students, unit types that students are looking for, suites and semi-suites. and you can see the width of the building is accommodating that. On each floor, we have a lounge. That lounge, north is to your left. That lounge is actually directed back toward Middle Campus. It's a way for the students living in the building to reconnect with the campus. The roof plan, we know this from previous projects, namely Nowlin Hall. The mechanical units, which are central to the building, need to be screened. And so the roof plan, although we provide a residential roof configuration, there's a well that's provided in the interior. In that well is where we put our mechanical units, so they are completely screened. And then when we look at the building section, one of the requirements is to show the existing grade. You can see that for about half of the building, we are using the existing grade of Moore Hall. And for providing universal access on that ground floor, it is extending to the north, and we're still maintaining that floor elevation. Another request was for a site section. This section up on the top actually is cut in the north-south direction, and you can see the profile of the existing Moore Hall. The new hall, which is behind that, is approximately 2 feet taller than the existing Moore Hall, so it's very similar. And then you can see Roberts and then Nowlin Hall here. On the other section, which is taken in the east-west direction, you can see Nowlin Hall here, and then the other residence hall, and then you can see the profile of the existing Moore Hall is very similar to the profile of the replacement housing. So it follows a similar profile. And I think another, what I like about these diagrams, it does show the distance between the buildings, and so you get a good sense of the commonality of that distance between buildings. Another question, still sticking with a little bit of detail, is lighting. How that lighting from the building itself, is there any light shed that goes out beyond our building? And I just wanted to note here, if you look at a typical room, what we're doing is actually mounting a fixture on the outside wall facing in. So the idea of seeing the light source or the light fixture would not be an issue. Also, too, on the way over, I drove past Nowlin Hall. The halls with mini blinds do mitigate light very well, and we'd rely more on indirect lighting than direct source lighting. Very briefly, I have a number of slides, but we're talking about the exterior character of the building. First of all, at our site, you can see the existing Moore Hall with these two photos. Adjacent to Moore Hall is Hickson Hall, which is 2 stories, and it has a great room. And then you can see 2 pictures of Nowlin Hall. Nowlin Hall is different from the other 3 quads in that it was renovated 12 years ago. In that renovation, a low-pitched roof was added, and this is part of the character of South Campus. Other pictures taken at the corner of Rosemary and Sheridan, although you can't see anything, that's part of the essence of this picture. The buildings are set back significantly, 300 to 150 feet from Sheridan and Rosemary, and so your eye is really focused on the landscaping. Other buildings on the South Campus include the remaining quad buildings, which have this vertical kind of architectural geometry on the exterior, and then the sports center, and we will mention that we're looking at that red brick as a source of inspiration, and then the ice rink. And then finally, last 2 slides, in mid-campus you have a number of styles ranging from medieval, Beaux-Arts, and this is as referenced within Lake Forest College's webpage, to international style, to even collegiate. What I can safely say about style, because that's one of the questions, the consistent aspect of Lake Forest College is there's not a consistent style. It's a collection of styles. And then finally, on North Campus, you can see a variety of styles again. But if we look for our moments of inspiration in terms of this new building, a couple of characteristics to bring out. The Moore Hall does have 2 colors of brick, and that aspect of it does bring character and vitality to the facade. If we look at Hickson adjacent to it, you can see two things. You see the residential proportion for those windows. We drew from that for the standard rooms. But then Hickson celebrates public space with a little bit more fenestration. Also, too, that triangle on top really has a beautiful proportion that we utilized as well. When you look at Nowlin Hall and you see the low kind of roof pitch, we're trying to keep the height down, but adding that roof pitch really does provide a residential character. And then you can see the element on the corner where that's public space, it has more glass. Finally, the existing quad buildings have that still that vertical kind of geometry to the exterior. And then the idea of having gable ends articulating the roof line is pretty consistent on campus. Right across the street from the new site is the Rosemary House. And you can see that also has a very similar characteristic, vertical treatment with a low slung roof. Here's a rendering of the proposed project. This is taken at the corner of Rosemary and Sheridan looking back. You can see Nowlin Hall with its vertical piers in the back, and then you can see here the articulation of the gables to give that roofline edge. And then even at the stair location, we've added a little more glazing to break up the facade. As you approach the building, this is a view along Rosemary, Sheridan's over here, and we describe this view as a gateway into the quadrangle itself. Moving closer, and this was an image that we thought was very important to really reinforce the idea of gateway. You can see the new project to the left, and you can start to see some of the detail in the articulation in the facade, and you can see Nowlin Hall on the right. But this truly is the pedestrian spine. We feel that this is a very active corridor for students coming into the quad. If you're standing there looking back to campus, you can see the proposed project to the right, and this rendering here starts to show the articulation. Stone sills, stone banding, a brick articulation is a contrasting color, and then the window proportions themselves. I do have all the materials. I'd be happy to bring them out if you have questions on it. This summarizes it. The glass is clear, but it has a 2M coating, so it's going to have, for energy purposes, it's going to have a little tint. We're using a combination of stone. At the base of the building, we're using architectural concrete. It's a special finish. And then we have 2 bricks. The red brick is actually derived from the sports center. It's a reddish-brown brick with variegated color. And then the contrasting brick is not to match identically to Nowlin and the quad buildings. It's meant to be a neutral color to contrast that. And then finally, we have a number of metals. We've chosen to go a darker color on the window frames themselves. I think this has been done successfully on campus, and we like the coloration. And then for the roof shingles themselves, that would be asphalt to mimic slate, and that's also consistent on campus. Very quickly, the elevations, you can see there's a fair amount of detail on these elevations to give it scale and residential character. You can also note where we do have social lounges in our super suites, where we have a social lounge between 2 double rooms. We've gone with a tripartite window, 3 panes, but then for the standard student rooms, 2 simple window. At the corner lounge, we are integrating significantly more fenestration. This is to really bring natural light into the intersection of the building. It's at the elbow or the hinge of the building. And then for the overall elevations, you can see the balance of the 2 brick colors. Once again, the pattern that we're showing is in the lighter color brick. The ends of the building represent just we're trying to achieve an elegant proportion. And this shows, this would be your view, in essence, along Sheridan Road before the building bends, and the other end. Cliff, just 3 more slides, civil and landscape.
Chair, member of the boards, my name is Cliff Miller, landscape architect for Lake Forest College. And what we have here is the engineering plan that shows the siting of Moore Hall as proposed. You can see just to the south of Moore Hall a parking lot that is shown there. That's an existing parking lot that was temporary parking for during the construction phase of the sports center. And the college proposes to make that a permanent parking area. So that already exists. You can see that on site if you've been over there, and it would become permanent parking. You can see the field to the right, the play field, and the buildings to the left and how they interact. The lower right-hand side there is the stormwater mitigation area. That is the zone on the property that we'll be utilizing for stormwater storage to handle the additional water coming off of the impervious surfaces. I'd like to jump right into the landscape plan, if I may. Jim, could you possibly go back to where you showed the verticals of the various buildings on campus with that? Could you do that for me? I think it's important for us to point out that, you know, over the last, which keep going all the way to where the photos of existing buildings. I think it's important for us to show that over the last almost 20 years, we've been working Lake Forest College to develop and to strengthen and enhance the setting that the college is originally put in, which is a little bit farther, please. You're almost there. There we go. You can see here, you know, these are typical buildings upon the campus, and one of the things that's important to note in the campus as a whole is our focus has not been on individual shrubs at the bases of windows or at door entranceways, but more on the setting as a whole, on the trees, the character, the open space, the vistas, the views. The buildings stand as, you know, in what we would call a collegiate fashion, where they're freestanding on their own. There's not much in the way of landscaping at the base of them. What there is a wonderful setting, and that's what we've worked on for the last 20 years to strengthen, enhance, replace. You know, we do, like a lot of Lake Forest, have a lot of large, stately oaks that are in decline, and we've planted hundreds of new ones. The idea being is to carry this forward, the original setting in which the college was first placed, and have that still be there another 100 years from now. So the landscape, as a background, the landscape that we've developed and proposed for Moore Hall is of that same character. We are dealing with scattered large stands of oaks and other trees that are found on campus, spruces, crab apples, things like that. We are not heavily planting this. We are planting this typical of the tradition that we've set, again, many years ago in Lake Forest College, in the creation of and carrying forth of the ambiance and vernacular that all three campuses have. If you drive Sheridan Road now from, you know, Deer Path down through here to Maplewood on the south side, you pass through all three campuses. The two campuses to the north, that sort of setting, the scattered oaks in front, the view lines to the grand buildings beyond, that's the exact thing that we're trying to carry forward here. Again, not only do we have this spine unifying the college campuses, we have the building and building styles, while different, subtly interconnected, and the landscape itself speaks to that same level of connection. So that is what you see proposed here. We have scattered oaks and spruces and maples, and if you were to look at Nolan Hall, which was done 10 years ago and we landscaped as well, the, again, middle campus up there in Glen Rowan, that's the effect that we're looking for. As you know, as you've seen this up in the north corner there of Sheridan and Rosemary on the south side, we already have a significant stand of trees all through that area, as well as down to the south at the main entrance off Maplewood. And if you would. Lastly, I'd like to show you real quick a rendering of that view coming south. We've worked real hard at the college over the last decade trying to develop, as the sports center was redeveloped and these other things have gone on, you know, historically the vehicular access to South Campus has been almost a service access. You know, it has not been defined, it has not been celebrated, it has not been clear to find. People get lost, buses get turned around bringing sports players. So one of the things was that we wanted to do, and the Sports Center helped put us over that, was to develop, a significant entranceway feature to the South Campus that's more in keeping with what we have at North and Middle. And we feel that over, the redevelopment of this area has allowed us to do that. This is your view coming from the north, heading south, right before you actually get to the entrance. That's the Sports Center you see in the background there. And in this picture, you're seeing on the right-hand side that vegetation. That is the, stormwater mitigation area, which is, we will be storing our water there. We actually store it below ground. It's in a manufactured soil that is then planted in an effect, as you see here with meadow effect would be a good way to call that, but it's actually a manufactured soil that stores water that's underneath that. It's very similar to what you see like at the high school that they put on top of the parking lot, they did the parking lot on top of. So this is the view that we would propose, and we really want to keep that open. There's been a home removed here. There's been all kinds of, buckthorn and debris removed here. And we think we've really developed this in a way that's very functional, not only to the college, but beneficial to the community as a whole.
Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we'll have staff present their report regarding the petition.
Thank you. I wanted to hit a couple points tonight. I'd like to review the process. I would like to talk a little bit about the previously approved master plan, because that has some bearing on the type of lighting, the type of signage that would come along with this new residence hall. And then I'd like to talk about the items that are before the board tonight for consideration. First, the process, just to kind of give you the big picture. Lake Forest College, like various institutions in the community, is authorized on residentially zoned property through a special use permit. This is really, although we're calling it its own special use permit, this is really an amendment to an overall special use permit that was granted many years ago for the campus. The special use permit is needed at this time because a new dormitory or a new student resident hall is being constructed. There's a slight increase in the number of students that will be enrolled in Lake Forest College. There are some changes to parking, to stormwater management, to circulation. Those types of amendments to an approved institutional campus go before the Zoning Board of Appeals. The Zoning Board of Appeals last week, I guess it was, heard its first presentation on this project. The zoning board raised some questions, asked for some refinement, wanted to get comments from the Building Review Board. This matter will go back to the Zoning Board of Appeals for action prior to the next time the board sees this. So given that this is a significant project, it's normal that we would bring the matter to you one time to introduce it, to get your questions, input on refinement, and then bring it back for action. The Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, I believe, is the night before your April meeting. So that matter, after it's reviewed by the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Building Review Board, then this will go forward to the City Council for final approval. Just a bit about the overall master plan. I think it was about almost about 8 or 10 years ago now, the college came forward with an overall master plan that was intended to be a build-out plan for about 5 years. So that plan at this point is really, it doesn't reach as far as this particular project. But what that plan did was put in place, number one, a concept that was implemented for a pedestrian spine throughout the campus, which you've heard referred to already. That pedestrian spine does extend from North Campus through Middle Campus and through South Campus. So that was a main feature of the master plan at that time. The master plan also established a signage plan. That signage plan was later approved by the Building Review Board, and the signage types are all in place. So as part of this request, no different type of signage is being requested. Same with lighting. At least at this point in the project, There's been no proposal to change the, either lighting in the parking lots, lighting along the pedestrian paths. There would be security lighting on this building, but overall campus-wise, there's no proposal to change the lighting. So what's before you tonight, for discussion tonight, is the request for demolition of Moore Hall, the proposal for the new student residence hall, and your role is, as you always do, to really consider the architectural design features. In this case, to recognize that although this is a larger structure than existing Moore Hall, it is in the middle of a residential neighborhood. So really looking for input from the board on refinements that will really assure that this building has some sense of a residential character, whether that's through some comments from the board on various architectural elements, proportions, exterior materials, for instance, the size of bricks. Some of this information presented tonight we had not yet seen yet, so this project continues to become more detailed. But input from you on the building would be helpful. You did receive some input on the landscape plan tonight. With projects of this type, it would not be unusual for the board actually to get a sense of the conceptual landscape plan, but then once this building construction gets underway, staff recommends that we would actually come back to you with a more detailed plan, because once this starts taking shape, we may have a better sense of where we need to add some vegetation. So tonight we are looking for direction from you, identification of areas where you think there should be some refinement, ideas, any requests for additional information. We will then work with the college project team and come back to you at your April meeting and request action at that time. Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. At this time, we will bring it to the board for questions and requests for clarification from the board to the petitioner or the staff. I'm going to just get us started here. Mr. Curtin, maybe you can help me with this one right off the bat. What is the height of Moore existing, and what is the proposed height of the new structure?
The existing Moore Hall, and this is off of a quick survey, or shooting it with a device, is 52 feet 8 inches. The new hall would be at 54 feet 8 inches. In the height, we have units that we want to obscure up on the top floor, and also want to preserve proper floor-to-floor, floor-to-ceiling height for the student residence spaces.
And that's the height for most of the building except the what? Is there a grade change in any of this area?
There is. That elevation is taken from the predominant grade at the entry. And what we have done is, because the grade does slope as you move toward the intersection of Rosemary and Sheridan, to keep that first floor.
So you're at the north end then, right?
I'm at the north end, okay. And then to keep that elevation flat, that's where we have the grade change.
Okay, so that's an additional 6 feet.
Correct.
Okay.
And then just as a follow-up, Cliff didn't mention this, but that walkway, we're actually utilizing that grade change, or we'd like to utilize that grade change with a small 2-foot-tall step retaining walls that could be used by students as benches. It shows up in that rendering I showed you before. The idea there is to try to keep the student activity centralized and focused on the interior as you go to the interior of the quad, and to really enhance that student pedestrian spine.
Okay. And then to follow up with that, I'd like to talk more about the color of the brick you were choosing. I think you said that the more dominant one would be the red brick.
Right. So it's got a reddish brown. This is actually the brick on the Sports Center edition.
Okay.
Is the same color, but the Sports Center edition, it's a smooth brick.
Right.
And what we thought would be more appropriate is, it's not completely textured, but it has a rougher finish to it, so it'll look more residential. And then this color here is meant to be more of a buff, kind of limestone buff color. So it's somewhat similar to the spandrel that was used at Madeleine Hall.
Aren't the quad buildings a bit more orange, though? Aren't those
They
all?
are. And so we think that these two colors work really well together. This is reminiscent of the spandrel plaster that was used at Madeleine Hall. It's more of a buff color like this.
Why would you choose the red to match the Sports Center as opposed to the orange to match the existing residences? Because it's more single use.
And that's a good question.
Mr. Curtin, I know you don't have another hand, but maybe you could move to the podium so the video will pick up your voice. Thank you.
Here, I have an idea. Can I just put these down here? Can everyone see here?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Back to another idea, and that is, as you're driving along Sheridan Road, there's a variety of brick colors, and we thought it would be nice to at least give a memory recall to the Sports Center. Now, Hickson Hall is a little deeper red, and that's in front of you. This would be more of a brown red, slightly set back, and then beyond that moves into more of an orange brick. It's kind of a brown orange on Nowlin and the rest of the quads.
It just, seems to me that you're now in a very tight cluster. You're putting in a much larger, more massive building in that tight cluster of the residential buildings. And now you're introducing even more color.
The intent was not to, the intent was to play off of the Sports Center in Hickson, but to allow that color to be a little bit lighter and not as intense as Hickson.
Okay. Are there plans to renovate the other quad buildings to match Nowlin?
We have no present plans for that renovation. At some point, that renovation will probably be necessary, but we don't have a current plan for that. So there's no decision been made to duplicate Nowlin or to repeat it in nature. For the foreseeable number of years ahead of us, 5, 6, 7 years, we expect the quads to stay basically as they are.
Thank you.
I have a question about Nolan Hall. The corner, I guess it would be the east corner, closest to the sidewalk between it and the new building. What goes on in that corner? Honestly, I didn't walk all the way in there. Are there bedroom windows? Is it casual community space? Is it solid brick? I mean, are we gonna have any bedrooms looking into bedrooms across the sidewalk?
You have, go ahead.
Hi, I'm David Siebert. I'm the Director of Facilities at the college. The
first floor, the lower level, which is sort of a garden apartment level, has a student rooms. Above that is a resident staff apartment. So I'm talking about the corner that would be closest to
Yes.
Rosemary and Sheridan. The floor above that is a student room, and the floor above that is a lounge space. The very top floor.
Of Nolan?
Correct.
Okay.
But let me interrupt. Weren't you talking about the part that would be closest to where?
To the new building.
The
To the
corner
new
of
building.
The part that's closest to the new building is
Yeah.
residential rooms.
That's all resident, that's where you have like
Correct.
the singles, yeah. So
Yes.
those would all be those have
So
windows.
those would be
with-
bedroom
yeah.
windows looking into other bedroom windows in the new
Correct,
building?
yeah. He's describing the center portion.
Okay.
Yeah, I was
Not,
talking
not
about
that
the,
wing.
No, I want to know about that. It's,
those are residential rooms.
okay.
In those rooms, actually, in that particular case, they have a view laterally as well as, that's an added window view that they have. And then I also might add is that the angle, if you look at the site plan, the angle of Nolan, you get the closest at a point. And, you know, at the corner of the building in regards to the new residence hall, which is, and that is, I think it's almost 36 feet now. But it's a significant distance away.
Because in your, at least in your computer rendering, which I know are tough sometimes, you get this tunnel feeling between the two buildings right there. And I didn't know if the distance between the two buildings satisfied life safety issues. Can you get an ambulance in there? Can you get a fire truck in there?
That's a very good question. It's been a highlighted topic of discussion. We've actually have maneuvered the building and to make that width work for all of those stated purposes. So at that width, you can handle safety vehicles and a variety of other.
I can just clarify, that was a point, the proximity of the two buildings at that point was a point that was raised by the Zoning Board of Appeals. Since that meeting, which again, it was only about a week and a half ago, we have had some initial discussions. There were a couple, there's one key piece that was really limiting the siting of this building. There's a city easement, you can see it on the existing survey that runs, that cuts across the college property. We have now, I think we're moving in the direction of being able to relocate the water main out of that easement and instead run it along Rosemary Road, which will give a little bit more flexibility. So when this project came before the Zoning Board of Appeals, the distance between those buildings at the closest point was 27 feet. Although we're just still working through this, it sounds like now it's at a distance of 36 feet. The fire department is involved and will be out walking the site again with this new configuration. So we're working on trying to expand the distance between the two buildings.
Yeah, to me, it just seems really tight in there. Thank you.
Thank you.
So let me just clarify on that one. So now you're pushing the building more towards Sheridan Road. It was 27 feet at that point, and now it's going to be 36 you're proposing?
Yeah, I can show you on the site
Or
plan.
close, okay.
The site plan actually, bear with me, I'm sorry.
That's fine. I'm looking at the grading plan
And
that
I would
shows the 27
just note
feet.
this, again, this is still in flux. This
Absolutely.
is changing, there's new information up here, so
Okay.
we haven't reviewed it with all our appropriate staff.
There, well,
I just want to get to the site plan itself. Hey, there. And Kathy, Okay. With the changes from the site plan that you have here in your possession, this now is 35.6. This dimension down here, we've also been able to improve to 33 feet 6 inches. And this dimension actually improved as well, 21 foot 5 inches. The way that was done was a relatively simple move. Kathy explained one issue, and that's that discontinued water line. We could move it a little bit further north. But we made a few rearrangements within the plan. And we, in essence, lengthened the angled leg by 12 feet and moved that length from the north wing to the south. That allowed for this geometry to free up our space between the buildings.
While we've got that picture up there, the sidewalk that goes between Nolan and the new building, is that where the 2-foot-high retaining wall is going to be for the kids to sit on? Is that going to be right next to?
Exactly, it's right here.
Okay, and that isn't gonna shrink the area between the buildings for vehicles? I mean, if you've got a 2-foot bed there.
Again, I'm sorry, David Siebert, I'm the Director of Facilities. Currently, all the buildings on South Campus have fire lanes guarded by gates. They don't have access to the interior of the campus now. This will actually, with the widening of the space to the south of the building, will improve the situation more than it is now. Currently, any fire or emergency vehicle access parks at the rear of the building or through another gate on the west end of the campus, but they don't have access to the interior of it.
Okay.
And I would just add, that review still needs to occur with the shift of the building. So we will be looking at that.
Okay, thank you.
What is the size of the new building? You said that the existing one is 20,000 square feet. What is the new size proposed at?
60,000. I have that here. 60,000. I'm not sure. 60,100 or it's 60,000 square feet.
I have a question. Has the college notified your neighbors, or are they, if not, are they planning on doing that?
Yes, sir, we have notified the neighbors. We had a public session for the neighbors to come visit the college and look at the diagrams that you're seeing here today 3 weeks ago or so. Yep.
So they're on notice that something's going to happen.
They are, and we've already had, as Kathy Cerniak pointed out, we've had one zoning board meeting last week with public access. But yes, we've notified the neighbors.
Okay.
Yep.
That's great. Thank you.
And the city has also sent out a notice.
What is the height of the sports center?
Sports center is, what is it? I wish I knew that answer for you immediately. I don't. I know it's something 7 inches, and I'm not sure what the first number is.
80 feet.
That works. Have you finalized or finished, I should say, all the plantings that were required for the sports center addition?
Dave or Cliff?
We do have a plan for those plantings as part of our agreement with the city originally.
Correct.
That was an ongoing plan, as you know, or may not know. We do have a master tree planting plan. An additional plan or an additional layer to that plan has been done to accommodate the sports center plants, and now we're adding to that to accommodate the inches that will be required as part of that. That, again, is an ongoing discussion that we're having with the city, but yes, we are on track with that.
Okay, because I recall it was before this board regarding that, and so I wasn't sure if those have been done. Do you know, Kathy?
I do. The plantings immediately associated with the sports center
That's what
have
I'm
been
asking about.
completed.
Okay.
There is, as Mr. Miller mentioned, a bank of tree inches from various projects that we are working with the college over a period of time to really look at where that reforestation is best accommodated. And some of those tree inches from other projects may in fact be used at the perimeter of the campus as part of this project.
Are they on schedule with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
And as part of the special use permit, I expect that we will probably want an updated reforestation plan and maybe a timeline for planting of some of those inches.
I have some questions about the building footprint and the siting of the proposed building. First of all, looking at the footprint of the existing Moore Hall, could you tell me what the relationship of the proposed building is to that? Is it about like 3 times as large of a footprint? Or do you know what the square footage of each floor plate is?
Well, the building itself, it's just, you can see it's outlined right in here, I believe, on this plan. And so it's a little bit more than a third, a little bit less than a half.
Because when I look at the grading plan, it looks like the existing footprint of Moore Hall is somewhat, well, maybe 10 foot or so smaller in perimeter than the south wing of the building.
Moore Hall is narrower than this project, and that's part of the inability for it to be reused. It has not an adequate width to meet the layout of the new student unit types.
So when I was walking around the site today, I was trying to figure out if the proposed building had been staked or not. I did see some stakes that had white paint on top. Was that the staking of the building?
The orange ones show the change. There were orange stakes out there also. Those show the change of this altered location. The white were the original stakings. So they were both.
There were a lot of stakes on
Yeah.
there. It was a little hard to tell. So the proposed building's going to be, now you said it's not the 17 foot, it's actually 20 feet away from Hickson Hall.
Yes.
And that was kind of one of those white stakes that was originally out on the site. Is that correct? Okay. And then one of the things that I noticed when I was on the site, when I was walking the student pathway, you know, walking towards the south, towards Nolan Hall, and you know, that northern elevation of Nolan Hall has a nice glassy elevation to it, and it did really act as a bookend or a gateway, which is what you had mentioned in your presentation. So I was wondering if you had looked at any other site options for your proposed building to make it more orthogonal to the existing buildings. That your north wing really relates to the pedestrian path, but not necessarily to Nolan.
Good point. You can see there's 2 geometries on the site, and this building is resolving those geometries. The geometry of Hickson, and as you go further south of the sports center, this northern wing is playing off of that geometry as a presentation along Sheridan Road. This geometry here is helping to complete this quadrangle. So it's working with the other 3 quad buildings, or the 4 quad buildings, to complete the quad and work with its geometry. There's a couple other really significant benefits. One is this is the existing path. So it's following, you know, parallel to that path. And this line right here for the rec field is a pretty sacred line to preserve the overall footprint that rec field needs to have to serve as a flexible recreation space. One of the other
things that I did notice on the site with the other dorms, even though in plan they look like they're large footprints, you know, the L-shaped dorms, they actually, when you're on site, those dorms seem to read as two separate buildings because the connector piece is a one-story piece. And I know Nolan, its connector piece is the 4-story, similar to what yours is, the full height of the building. So I guess what I'm getting to is this is a very large building in comparison to the other buildings on the site. So did you consider any ways of like mitigating the two wings so that they would read perhaps as separate buildings, you know, thereby addressing, you know, the south building and how it relates to the quad, and the north wing and how it relates to the pedestrian path?
Okay, two comments on that. One is with Roberts or Gregory or the other quad buildings where they do have a one-story connector. One of the challenges on those buildings is the fact that they are not connected on the floors. And there is a challenge in terms of building student community, camaraderie within the building. The one positive effect, I mean, multiple positive effects with that renovation of Nolan Hall and allowing those two wings to connect, it really developed a stronger residential community. And a stronger residential community for students provides for a healthier environment, both inside and outside. So in terms of this building, part of the reasons why we do like the fold in the building is for just that fact. It's not presenting a complete straight facade. It's presenting a faceted facade, and that lounge space that I described, which is located right at that knuckle, that to us serves as kind of a break point where you're providing a lounge space for the students and a little bit more fenestration that differentiates it between the two wings, which are significantly more solid with brick.
Thank you.
So where is your lounge space now on your new?
Right at that point. I can show you on the floor plan.
But now, and that whole area is facing out toward Sheridan Road versus toward the quad and the quad grounds where all your student activity is.
It is, but you can look at the elevations. We carry the brick of this facade in rhythm along that entire length, and so the more open aspect of this lounge is right at the corner. The thought here is that when you are entering or you're approaching this building on grade, you're walking along the student path. And so on the lower level, you can see this is your main entry and this is the quadrangle space. Here's your multi-purpose room. Even laundry becomes kind of a nice active environment for students. That all faces into the quad. But on the upper floor, when we thought it would be nice to reconnect back to campus with that lounge. Like I said, the Sheridan Road is running along this way, but as you know, it kind of curves as you approach mid-campus. And so this has a nice view of the recreation field. I mean, that recreation field is wide open green space that would also be very pleasant for students to see.
What's the fenestration there at that elevation? Yeah.
Right at the corner, it's primarily full height glass. It's very similar to Nolan Hall at the top of Nolan Hall. I can go to those elevations.
So that's full height glass typically, and it basically is a 24-hour room, correct?
Well, we've also
That
talked
will
to
be lit.
staff. Let me just, I did a blow-up elevation of that, I believe. There it is. So you can see that the slab edge is covered and this becomes far more glass. I mean, we'd like to have as much natural light into that lounge as we can. Now, those lounges also will be mitigated. We talked with staff about that could also be on motion sensors so that when the lounge is used, the lights are on. And we can also look at indirect lighting, which is, I noticed once again driving by Nolan Hall tonight, we utilize sconces for a significant part of that lighting, which is both indirect, it's up and down. But we can look at that as well. So either it's a combination of all the above. We showed you the student room, how we could put the light fixture on the exterior wall but point inside, so you don't have the glare. Same approach would apply here. How can we indirectly light that room and light it when it's in use, but go back to it off when it's not in use? That room also would have blinds for privacy as well.
I've got a related question then on your north elevation, which is quite a bit closer to Rosemary now. If you could maybe put that up, please. You got some larger windows now.
Oops. Right here.
Well, I've got a different elevation in our packet. It's much larger windows here in our north elevation. I don't know if that's changed since the review.
Yes, we have been kind of moving, and I apologize, your packet, we have, and we're showing you here some things that we have been trying to improve or to revise.
So say this is the narrower building that got longer to give you the distance between the other buildings? Is that the result of that?
It's the angled, it's the canted building that got a little bit longer to, in essence, move the hips of the building up, so we got a little more separation between the neighboring buildings.
So this is the most current plan with the
most
narrower
current,
windows?
yes.
Okay, and again, I was concerned, you had a lot of glass there. I imagine that was a stairwell. I don't know if that was lit all the time. You're close to the neighbors here to the north, so I was a
We've
little
also
concerned.
talked about that. You're raising fantastic points that staff also raise. And one of the gestures here to reduce the amount of glass, but also we're looking at, once again, a sconce type fixture providing absolute minimum required lighting for safety. That is not a communicating stair for the building. We have, there's another stair within the central part of the building. So this is really for safety and for exiting. However, it does give a little bit of relief to that facade as you're approaching the building.
Yeah, and I think that's key because, again, that's a rather big mass that's kind of going north now, and that's a key.
Well, and hence the belt coursing too, and giving some scale into the facade in that way. All the window headers are all soldier course. The sills are all stone. So it's got that built-in relief and residential character.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I have a few.
Please.
You mentioned that Moore Hall currently is 17 feet from Hickson Hall. Is that? That's.
Moore Hall is currently.
It's currently farther than that,
Yeah.
according to the. Okay.
Proposal 17.
But the distance that you're proposing is going to be in the neighborhood of 20-some feet.
21 feet 5 inches is what we currently have.
What's the floor to ceiling height of the typical floor?
It's 8'6".
And I have a question for Mr. Shute about the quadrangle buildings, the quad buildings. Somebody asked about the thoughts on going further into the future. You said 5, 6, 7 years from now, there's no consideration for doing anything. What happens 10, 15, 20 years from now?
It's a great question, and my answer won't be as good as the question. We're going to be doing a lot of planning over the next year, academic planning about the future directions of the college. That planning will then probably put the college in a better position than we're in right now to engage in a new master planning exercise with the city's cooperation. I don't expect the residential population at the college to grow beyond the 1,700 students I spoke to earlier today, which we expect to attain by about 2015-16. So I don't foresee, frankly, well into the future, as far as I can see into the future, I don't see the residential population growing on campus. To the extent that the college expands further, my prediction would be that expansion will not be on campus here in Lake Forest. But that, as I say, that is close to being in the realm of speculation for me right now because I don't have a 10-year plan.
Is it safe to say that in those 10 or 15 or 20 years that those buildings stand a good chance at being updated?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Is it safe to say that any of those buildings could have the same fate as Moore Hall and being torn down and reconstructed? And is it safe to say that the quadrangles are sacred and that possibly those same locations would be considered a replacement location for a new structure down the road?
I'm struck by your phrase, is it safe to say? I think the thing that is safe to say is that South Campus is going to remain a large residential area for the college. To speak more specifically about those quadrangle buildings, their future as they stand or as renovated or as replaced is really more than I can do today. But I have no hesitation in saying that South Campus as it is today and as it will be will remain the largest residential area of the college. So the almost certainty is that there will be residential presence where those quadrangle buildings are. Okay. Does that answer your question, sir?
It does, and I think somebody also mentioned that this proposed structure, you know, could be there 100 years from now if we build it new and meeting today's codes and standards for
sure.
Life and safety and better construction than the existing Moore Hall. It's safe to say that building will be here beyond us.
Yes.
Okay. And then Clifford, I had a question or two for you. Actually, it's one question, but if you could pull the landscape plan up, if it's on the slide. I don't remember seeing it flash by me, but it's in my package. Just nobody focus on the screen. This is always good. And if it's not, I have a question related to the last slide that you showed, which was a landscape plan taken from, I think, Sheridan Road. There, what is that? No, that's not it. There it is. And then again on that last slide that you showed, and don't change this, but you indicated some trees that were screening something, and I wonder if you could point out which trees those might have been in that rendering. Do you remember? I think it had to do with the retaining ditch that we were discussing, and you had a row of trees that were screening a building.
I believe it's with the next slide with the sports center.
Yeah, is that the next slide?
Yeah, you mean the actual rendering?
Those trees that are there. Can you point to where those might be in the landscape plan, or?
Well, every tree that you're looking at in that picture exists currently in that rendering. If you want to go back to the rendering, the only two trees in that picture that aren't currently there are the two primarily in the center.
Those two.
Those two. As I said and pointed out, that area of the campus, like the northeast corner there up by Rosemary and Sheridan, are already heavily timbered areas.
I guess my question is, those two trees that don't currently exist, where are they in the landscape plan, and specifically, what diameter are they? Because I'm looking at a landscape plan.
Well, they're proposed if from here, I'll show you in the very southeast corner of that plan, you will see three larger circles. There's one of them, and two on the parkway. Those trees are right where he's pointing right now. They're shown, look right there. That's those two trees. You are viewing this. You are viewing that angle again, southbound on Sheridan, looking from approximately this point directly through to the sports center and the southern vehicular access to the campus. It is these two trees that you're looking through.
Those two, and those look like they've got a 2.5-inch diameter?
I can't read the slide from here, but yes,
Are the
approximately.
sugar maple?
Yes.
Well, one of them is.
One's a
one's
red maple, and the other one is a American basswood.
Okay. Can you elaborate on how, and go back to the next slide, that's the, how does a 2.5-inch diameter tree shield and shade a 4-foot-high building?
You're right next to it.
Okay.
It's foreshadowed.
All right.
You see
So if
the
everybody in the community parks their self right there, then this is what they're gonna see.
This tree is in the photograph, and that's a 2-inch caliber tree, 20 feet farther away.
I understand.
So this is a 2.5-inch tree, 20 feet closer. I'm literally 20 feet from this tree.
Okay.
So certainly it is not a tree. Now, the tree behind, these existing trees are all taller than the building.
Right.
Much farther away, but they are in fact taller. The idea, quite frankly, is not to screen that building, but enhance the entranceway view as you come through and help frame them. So those trees are not planted to screen the sports center. They're planted to enhance that whole zone.
Well, while we're on that area, in the stormwater management area, there's 3 trees around the perimeter of that detention facility that are to be preserved. Do they show up on that?
Excuse me?
On the, for the stormwater management plan, there's 3 trees right on the edge of the grading that are shown to be preserved. Are those trees on that
There are.
photograph or rendering?
Can you hit the site plan? Yeah, this will work. Well, there's several trees actually, of which the 2 main trees here and here that are being protected, all of those are behind you in that view shed. So they are not in that rendering. The large tree in that rendering is that's existing, the photograph, is this tree in the very corner. This is the grove you're viewing through. The trees that are under protection are north of that area.
Okay, so those trees that are to be protected are right on the edge of the grading, and then there's about a 4-foot cut or whatever it is right next to them. Do you think that those trees will survive that grading work right next to the trunk?
Well, you know, I think there's, you know, we wouldn't propose it, or certainly I wouldn't propose it if I felt that we couldn't do that successfully. These are not historic, those particular trees are planted trees. They're not historic trees that have been in place and grown roots in undisturbed zones like some of our larger oaks and such. I have reviewed this with the forester on site. We have walked through this and we have looked at this, and actually we've already decided to make a few minor changes that you know, are not before you tonight, but do relate to your question exactly. The idea being, I mean, we all have the common goal of not disturbing what we don't have to. One of the reasons for the type of stormwater mitigation area you're seeing proposed is to minimize the effect on the surrounding trees that we have in that area. So yes, I have to agree that there will be some effect upon those trees. However, we think with proper construction protection and technique, we can minimize that in such a way as we have elsewhere on the campus to be able to work with them rather than lose them.
Well, I'm thinking of on the eastern side of Lake Forest, I don't know of any stormwater detention basin on the eastern part of town. And I guess just being along Sheridan Road, I'd be concerned on how that appears and how it's landscaped. The other thing is that if you take a look at the athletic field, and it looks like that drainage is all going straight east towards Sheridan Road. So I don't know how do you direct the water to that facility?
I'm not the engineer for the project. Dave Gaywalt, who is with Gaywalt Hamilton, is not here right now, but my understanding is that the field will continue to drain the way it historically has, and that the mitigation area we're dealing with right now relates to the additional hard surfaces and impervious surfaces developed by the construction of the new building. That water is directed to this station. I would like to point out that on the corner of Illinois and Washington, the northwest corner, that is a detention area that the college built, you know, through the processes of the city that is currently there. It is heavily landscaped. That's a dry detention. It doesn't, it's just, you know, it's a grassed area that stores water in conjunction with the subsurface. So we do have this type. We're proposing a newer, you know, what might commonly be called, say, in a residential setting, a rain garden. That's more the style of what we're doing now. It's a little bit more eco-friendly, a little bit more progressive, if you will, and we can get away with more storage. That's what we're proposing here now, and part of the reason for that is the limited amount of space. Technically, the city would typically require an open pond of large size, a wet detention. You know, it is not our goal to do that in such a way that, first of all, we'd have to take out dozens more trees, make it much larger. Then we have an open water we're dealing with right on the campus. There is just a whole lot of problems associated with that. So this use of the more eco-friendly rain garden and that concept of storing in you know, a manufactured soil you know, below a meadow. Now we do have on the campus and have had all through campus these areas of natural landscape. We have, you know, ravines, woodlands, and some areas with pathways and educational opportunity for the students. And we see this area with the meadow that we're creating in there to accommodate that stormwater storage to also act as a place that we can further education for students in the environmental studies program. We've had conversations with the professors in that department about how we can take this to that next level. But yes, this is a more progressive, you know, a little bit different use of stormwater that we've done to accommodate the conditions of the site, the need to protect the trees, and the campus as a whole.
And I can just add, the stormwater management aspect is an aspect that the Zoning Board of Appeals will be looking at further and ask for some additional information on.
Excellent, thank you.
Could I just add one thing, Mr. Bleck? I mean, just on this point. For reasons that are probably obvious, the appearance of this entrance is going to be critically important to the college. And so this is going to be an aesthetically very pleasing area, the rain garden. It has to be, for all the reasons that we talked about earlier, because this is becoming a major entrance to the college for us.
I think that's important because it's right along Sheridan Road and. Sure.
Yeah. I have a question for Mr. Curtin. Could you, and I know what we have is slightly different than what you've just been, you know, because I know it's kind of a work in progress, and so could you tell me how much further north now this north wing is moving, how much further that building is? And my concern is it's already a massive building. You're going higher, and now your perspective from coming around Sheridan and, you know, that Rosemary, you really see that corner right there, that north corner. And at that point, your grade is lower, so that's where you've, so at that point, your building is already, according to this one, looks like it's 60 feet high. And now if you're moving it further north, I believe that's where it pitches down, so it's gonna look even more massive.
I believe the move north was only about 4 or 5 feet. It was only to gain, going from, gain a little bit more space between Roberts and the new building. So it's not significant. The majority of our added space came from rearranging a couple units within the building to change the geometry. And once again, Kathy hasn't, this was a point where we were going to discuss and try to come up with the best siting. We're always just trying to improve it as we go along.
Well, certainly, and that's why we're having this discussion
Right.
and asking these questions. And I think that 5 feet actually is significant, because now you've got at least 5 more feet of lineal footage that you have now, you know, looks like it's even taller. So it is significant.
And that's
in my
something that,
opinion.
as we coordinate with the city in terms of that access corridor on the south of the building in relation to Roberts, and figuring out what the right, you know, really clarifying the exact dimension that would work appropriately for them would be helpful.
Okay, thank you.
If I could, I think this question is somewhat related to Peggy's, but at that north wing, and I'm looking at the civil engineer grading plan, and I know that north wing is supposed to relate to the pedestrian path. And on this drawing, it indicates that you're actually moving the pedestrian path slightly to the west. Is that because the north wing, you wanted to get it to be a true north-south orientation?
It doesn't have to be.
Okay, I guess I'm just wondering why that angle,
The angle of the building itself.
the north angle.
Yeah, once again, I think it's relating to the two geometries, the Hickson geometry, and so it is playing off of that Hickson geometry, and then the quads.
But what's the use of Hickson?
Yeah, because it's a small building, and, you know, in relationship, you've got a 1.5-story building to
Right. I agree.
a
It seems-
4-story building.
It seems more significant to play off the quad and that layout.
Well, this site plan, once again, I think that plays off the quad, but we also are looking at preserving that there's a lot of factors kind of playing into putting this building in, working with that pedestrian corridor, preserving those natural amenities that are there, including vegetation as well. It kind of, I didn't even point out there's a model here, but the model is pretty informative as well. Kind of shows you how as you're viewing down, I don't want to leave the mic, but you can see how the Sports Center, Hickson, and the new Residence Hall are all kind of in alignment, and they kind of step and work off of Sheridan Road. Not in the exact way, but it does give, from my perspective, it gives a nice presentation along Sheridan Road.
Do we have any further questions from the board at this time?
I guess I have one question on the parking. Are the 18 new parking spaces going to be sufficient for the expansion?
The zoning board of appeals did get a traffic study, a parking study, and as part of the special use permit, there will likely be some overall policies that govern which students can bring cars to campus. The zoning board also asked for a more detailed parking plan that looks at where specific activities, specific parkers on campus park. Where do resident students park? Where do commuter students park? There are specific policies that will be put in place to address special events. So that is, the adequacy of parking is an issue the zoning board is looking at.
Thank you.
I have one question that might bring down the roof, but has there been any thought to demolishing Hickson Hall and utilizing that space, bringing this whole structure south and east a little bit?
Mr. Dugan, someone asked the question, I'm not sure which one of your fellow board members, what Hickson is used for. The answer is it's used year-round for theater productions. That's our black box theater. So we use it all the time. And at some point in the future, is it possible that there will be a change there? Yes, that's possible. There is no plan for that change as of now. And it is a building that is heavily in use.
It is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any further questions from the board? Hearing none. At this time, we will allow public testimony. Seeing none. Any comments from the petitioner at this point before we take it to board discussion? Thank you. Okay, we will then take it to board discussion. I will just lead off with the fact that I think the building is quite massive. I think the fact that, you know, first of all, we don't know the exact location, and I think that whole north exposure is going to look even more massive. The building is 3 times the size of the existing building, which already is a lot taller than the rest of the residential structures there. I think the neighborhood is going to have a significant change look because of this massive building, and I'm concerned about the overall height and mass of it. That's just my first comment. So let's start with that.
I guess I can lead off. Madam Chairman, you failed to mention Moore Hall and the condition it's in. And as I looked at it as an architect and concerned for the people that live there and the construction type, I think it's safe to say it's someplace we wouldn't want a tragic disaster to take place some point in the near future. So I'd suggest that building is ripe and ready for demolition. It is a tall building, taller than the others in the quad. I think the aesthetics of it are quite striking and nice, and some of the gables, the use of bays and the punched openings, the brick and some of the articulation on Moore Hall is quite nice. And as I'm listening to the architect in the presentation, I'm struggling, or I was struggling to try to understand the concept. You know, why this building? I guess I understand, you know, the location of Moore Hall being the position. I understand the closing up and containing the quad as a concept. And then I'm listening to some of the architectural expressions of why the building should be as big as it is, as long as it is. I understand the use of the building has to do with dormitories, and they need beds, and they need a desk, and they need a bathroom, and there's certain distances for these in a hallway and such, which gives it its width, its length. Probably has a lot to do with the number of units you want to put in that width. Understanding that from the architects and the petitioners' thoughts that if we're taking a 4-story building down, we should present a 4-story building back to the community. As I look at the quad and I look at, we keep talking about Nolan Hall, but there's other buildings that are similar in height and size. They're all 3 stories tall. And I don't see any relation to this building to respect the height of some 3-story buildings that are 20 feet away, or 27 or 30 feet away. And it would be a contextual design solution to relate elements of the new building to something that it's relatively connected to or contiguous with. And then I listened to some of the design details, particularly the white brick and how that's reminiscent or contextual or respecting the plaster spandrel panels above and below the windows at Nolan Hall. In other words, you get a verticality when you design a building of masonry that, and I'm assuming those buildings were built somewhere maybe in the 60s or 70s, but back then some of the economics were that if you didn't put brick above a window, then you didn't have to put a steel lintel, and it wasn't particularly a design feature, or maybe it was, but it was related to and a result of trying to be economic in the thought process. So we've picked up on a design detail that is respecting a concept of poor design and economically driven thoughts. So I have a problem with the height, and certainly the contextual relation it has to the buildings it relates to. I do understand, you know, the angle to some degree. I understand that, you know, when it's running on that quad parallel or perpendicular line. And then I have a little more trouble understanding the relation to Hicks and Hawley. I can't remember who pointed that out, but I do appreciate them maintaining and keeping sacred that athletic field. But it doesn't look like it is the best contextual fit. I just wonder why there isn't another change in plane that breaks up the mass. And as far as breaking up the mass, I appreciate the little recesses that they have for the sitting units that are an occasion to break up the length of this building, which by the way is almost a football field long. You know, when they say 55 and then plus another 6, I mean that's 6-story building sizes.
Exactly.
And I kind of wonder too why we're asking for a variance to give 8-foot 6-inch high ceilings. I mean, 8 foot is perfectly livable, and you add those up 4 times, and there's our 2 feet that maybe we're suggesting we need a variance for the height. But that big 2 feet in the big scheme of things isn't gonna make or break anything. But so I'm not enamored with the solution on the shape of the building. If we're just looking at a footprint, I don't think it's the best footprint. And then we were presented with alternatives on another sheet that show, well, what if we stuck it right along Sheridan Road, or what if we stuck it right along Rosemary Road? Well, they're putting the same building in a place, again, that isn't respecting the contextual fit. So if you're proposing that along Rosemary Road for an alternate number 2 would be something that you considered, I think, too, you should have considered a different shape, size, height, width building as it relates to different location on the site. Not to say that I'm enamored with any one of those sites, no matter what building you'd put on it. I think it would be the wrong location, but I'm just, I look at that exercise as not serious and didn't really, shouldn't, I think, be in the package. I think this is the right location. I think the Moore building should be something that we don't try to renovate and retrofit, and but I don't think that we necessarily need to tear down well, I think we should tear it down, but if we're going to put it back, let's put it back with a building that everybody's going to like for 100 years, because I think that building's going to be there for 100 years. I don't necessarily think, and I'm not here to project what the future might bring or what the Lake Forest College should do or anything else, but I'm looking at this as a building that I need to live with as I drive down Sheridan Road quite often, whether or not I'm going to be proud at my decision to vote yes or no tonight. And then I look at some other things that I think I find quite discerning. We talked about Nolan Hall, and I think the architect said that, you know, as the upgrade to the building, we connected the building for a residential community created within the building itself. And I understand that. And as I look at the presentation here, I'm looking at pictures of this building in plan and in elevation. I'm looking at pictures of other campus buildings, you know, photographs of all the other buildings that are in the same campus or further north on the other side of the street as part of the academic campus. What I'm not seeing here is any of the neighborhood photographs. So we talk about a residential community. I don't see that the petitioner has considered any of the residential community in their design. It's not in the package. And I find that disheartening. I mean, to the point of unbelievable, I think. I'm looking at presentations that show 2.5-inch diameter trees screening buildings. I'm hearing the architects suggest elegant proportions and sophisticated detail and enhancing the pedestrian spine. And all I'm seeing is you know, window dressing with lots of trees and lots of elegant, lofty comments and words being used. And I gotta tell you, I think it's a big building. I think the design and I see this repetitious pattern. I mean, we can take big buildings as architects and we can break them down and make them look smaller scale. I think staff, I commend you. I think the work you did and the way you presented here with questions that we should be asking ourselves. I think what you presented here, I agree wholeheartedly with. The mass, some of the details. You know, are the gables used appropriately? No, they're used in a regular pattern. There's rocket ship gables with the flat wall in between, and then vertical spaces that somehow separate something that I think is, I can't support this project. There's nothing that I can support about it.
Let me interject here as we continue to have the discussion regarding your comment of the contextual fit. As we continue the discussion, mostly I think we talked about, I brought up the mass first, but I think right along with that was the color of the brick that I had concern in fitting with, and then even the location of the large window area facing outside. You know, the whole area inside that quad is where, you know, everything takes place there, and it just seems that facing outside is just the wrong place for that. So, just want to put that out there as we continue our discussion.
I feel that the, replacing the old hall, just looking at the layout, you know, you've got a huge building there. It's somewhat mitigated by the athletic field, you know, from Sheridan Road. And from the north, you're kind of looking at the narrow end of it. But I think it's a huge, huge building. I know you need space. Or you need space for students. And God, I have trouble supporting a building that size.
I do too. I think it's too massive, particularly given its proximity to the other buildings. I think it's like squeezing a size 10 foot into a size 6 shoe. It doesn't work for me. And there's no point in going into, in my viewpoint, going into too many more architectural detail discussions until we at least get the location and the positioning and the overall size brought down into a more reasonable scale.
Well, I agree with the comments that have been said, and I'm most bothered by the north wing, because that's almost like adding another building or two. And, you know, the south part, I can understand that. It's more hall is there, and it's sort of in that footprint. The north wing is really what I have the most problem with, the mass and the height.
Yeah, I think that South Campus has a different feel than the other campus areas, whereas it's a lot closer to residences, and I think just dropping this large building in that area, I think the residents would, I just don't think it would match the residential neighborhood. I'm sorry.
I was going to say, the footprint is quite large. The 4 stories, if you know, these guys probably want direction is what they need here really tonight. If we went down to a 3-story structure, and before everybody hollers here, obviously we're going to lose some units if you do that, but would that help, just throwing out to other board members? I mean, part of this massing is the height, I would say. I mean, you're just going straight across north here along Sheridan Road, 4 stories. It's kind of in your face.
John pointed out there are ways to mitigate the appearance of a lot of that, so by the design itself.
Even to 4 stories?
Well, the other buildings are, you know, flat roofed, for example. I mean, you've got some, you know, big gables. You know, there are ways to do that. And breaking up the massing, you know, like some of the other quad buildings have.
Well, and you know, windowsills on the first floor. I mean, they're 2.5 feet off the floor. What if the building was just pushed into the ground 2.5 feet to start with, or something, you know, that lowers the height? And have the windows, or the first 3 feet of the building, you know, under the existing grade. But there's other things you can do, but I would say relationships to 3-story buildings, certainly a consideration toward the neighborhood, which I don't see that anybody considered the people that live along Rosemary or the people that live in this community that have to look at something the length of a football field with the roof lines of a battleship.
I think it's probably pretty clear from the line of my questioning that I'm not quite comfortable with the overall footprint of the building, of specifically the north wing. I don't really think that it addresses, you know, the entry into that dormitory kind of quad area. I do agree that the portion of the building is addressing the quads, and it works really well. That's where the student activities all happening, and I believe that there could be a different solution for that gateway into the residential area of the campus. And again, I think that there's the option to work with the elevations and try to make them not look so vertical with the gables. I mean, I appreciate the attempt in trying to match some of the other architectural styles on campus, but I think, you know, perhaps the simplicity of the other dorm buildings could lend some direction to this building.
Yeah, and then to further that, regarding landscaping, I know, you know, we end up talking a lot about that, and I think looking at and listening to what, you know, their design is for more openness, I think in this particular area, however, I would request a lot more landscaping and on the side facing Sheridan Road. I think when we did the athletic building, we were woefully short in what ended up there.
To me, this is such a large building in comparison to the other dorms, and even the other dorms on campus, most of them read as 2 separate buildings. So I think I'm just seeing this in elevation and that it's all reading as one piece. I guess I would lend some direction as to at least looking at a way to break up the building so that perhaps the wings are separate pieces.
So what I'm hearing is possibly working with design to break up the wings, and then simply the overall height is a major issue for everybody here.
And the proximity to the other buildings.
Right, and the proximity and just the sighting of it overall.
And there's some good examples of other buildings on campus. There's Lois Durand Hall, which is a 4-story building. Some of it is 3-story, some of it is 4. Deer Path Hall has a wonderful aesthetic on that, and I think the other one was across the street from the, I want to say it was across the street from the sports center and to the south of these buildings. It's in the package here, but is it Gotham Hall? It starts with a G. I don't know. Help me out.
Or which one are you talking about?
I'm sorry, Buchanan Hall.
Ah.
Now, that looks like it might be a 3-story building, but I think some of the aesthetics that were chosen to relate to or emulate, I think there's other buildings on campus or certainly other building types around that can be incorporated into the overall design. If there's portions of the building that are 4 stories that don't necessarily relate to their close neighbors, I could support that, because I think that would help break up some of the mass if some element was taller and some was smaller.
Okay.
And then there's opportunities to do feature elements that become a focal point or are hierarchical to the whole residential campus area. I don't want to say a tower, because I'm going to light everybody's fuse, but I think there's ways of breaking up a building that otherwise looks like it's just extruded and moves along until you run out of units and or site.
What do you feel about the color?
The color?
Mm-hmm.
I almost don't want to go there. I mean, I like the red brick with the more residential brick. The pure creamy colored brick seems very commercial, and I think the stark contrast and the use of it was distracted from the design.
I think the cream color brick just emphasized the verticality
sure.
of those
Mhm.
areas,
Right.
so that didn't really help.
Right.
Yeah, I prefer the brick color of Hickson, more traditional, and without the cream colored brick.
Mm-hmm. I'd prefer it to match the other quad, because it's contextually, that's what you're doing. You're building a residence to match, and then you're in the whole residential area, versus you have the sports center, which is its own, it's kind of defined on its own right now.
That's a matter of taste for me. I'm not crazy
Fair.
about the orange brick.
I'm not
No,
either,
I
but I
agree
think it
with you.
matches better.
Yeah.
Just to have it match bad architecture with better, I don't know.
You know, I like the idea of those sittable height walls that were part of the landscape design, or maybe were used for retention in a narrow place, but when I was witnessing the use of that quad today, I noticed everybody just walked through it. It did not seem like a gathering place. It didn't seem like there was any sort of seating, community seating kind of thing, and I don't know if we want to, that would be their business, but it's just a thought and a comment that I have.
Okay, so I think does staff feel we have a decent summary? I think we were talking about, the siting, the height, and breaking up the massing by many different methods. Okay.
Got it.
Okay. Okay, so that is our summary. Thank you very much for your time and your presentation. We are not taking this to a vote, is that correct?
But you should do a motion to continue.
Okay, okay. Do I hear a motion to continue this petition?
Make a motion to continue the petition.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? None. Thank you. Motion is carried. Now I'd like to revisit our consent agenda item where we can ask for some clarification regarding the revised drawings versus the original drawings. This is, was item agenda number 3, which is the 320 South Green Bay Road. The owners are Megan and Patrick Winters, and the representative is Susan Rolander, architect.
Yes.
Hi, Susan. Thank you so much for your time.
Oh, no problem. Good evening.
Thank you for being patient with us on our other petitions. I apologize. I did at one point have both sets of drawings, and I didn't realize it wasn't in the board packet for my fellow members. So I think, Megan, are you able to do a quick summary for us of the items that we had requested at our last meeting, that we had requested the petitioner follow through on, and that has now come into the final plans?
Sure.
Thank you so much.
When the board previously reviewed this project, there were several items that were part of the conditions of approval, including verifying that the floor plan and the elevations are consistent, looking at, I'm sorry, I don't have the proper direction, but there was an area with a walkout balcony that the board asked for some refinement. That area has been modified. And then just general, a lot of the modifications resulted from really finalizing a conceptual drawing into hard drawing for permit. But I think the architect will probably be able to go through most of those modifications, and then I can provide some comment.
Excellent, thank you.
Megan, do you have to do anything so that I can project these drawings, or, and I've got that. Hey, good evening. My name is Susan Rolander, the architect for the project. The changes that were made from the drawings that you approved at the November meeting stem basically from refining essentially a cartoon set of drawings to a hardline set of drawings. The set that was approved had doors drawn at 6 feet high in order to get the squared light pattern on the doors and on the windows to kind of look like a lovely unified elevation, which obviously 6-foot doors aren't appropriate for anything, but so there are little refinements like that that occurred. But in addition to that, I mean, the main things that were changed, the things that were requested in the conditions of approval, the rectangular bump out removed from the back of the house, which would be on the south elevation. It had a little Juliet balcony on it. That was removed. It seemed like maybe it was added, and then they kind of pulled the pants up on the thing and put it, kind of started putting awkward roof details on it. So we managed to refine the floor plan in such a way to just eliminate that altogether. Brick soldier course above the garage doors, that's no problem, that was added. Modification to the window configuration around the chimney on the east elevation. That was that we modified, and you can see that on the east elevation to be more in keeping with the windows that go around. They're not breaking the line between the first and second floors. It's or the gutter line. It's all above the gutter line, like the rest of the dormer windows are on the second floor. And then the second floor windows were, and some of the spacing had to be revisited because the way that the project was presented the first time, the second floor it came in 5 inches around, allowing for the brick, but it didn't allow for the pitch of that first part of the roof, so you lose floor space all the way around the edge. So some things had to be kind of, some of it had to be readjusted to account for that. And basically just to reconcile the two sets of drawings with the wishes and desires of my client. Happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you, Ms. Rolander. Megan, do you have any additional comments?
Just a couple. As I mentioned before, this petition came in for permit. During the permit review, we identified some of the refinements, and in consultation with the chairman, did bring this forward for consent reviews. Given the scope of the changes and the modifications presented, we are recommending approval of those at this time. They are generally consistent with the board's discussion, but I welcome your comments and questions.
Thank you. Do we have any further questions from the board regarding this? I just have one. What is the roof material, the mansard portion?
It is cedar shingles.
Great, okay, thank you.
I have one question. On the east elevation, on the new drawing, I think it's just because the print's so small.
Oh, yeah.
What is the little brick square?
It's brick row-lock course. Just some relief in just a flat brick wall.
Okay.
Meant to be a backdrop for landscaping. You know, it's kind of I don't have the landscape plan here, but you probably have it in your packet. It's kind of a formal orchard in that corner, and then
So an espaliered pear or something like that. Yeah.
or something climbing,
Okay.
or something,
Okay.
right, you know, to be kind of framed within that, and to break up the brick wall, just to give it some detail and some relief in that
Super.
area.
Thank you, I just couldn't read the.
Yeah, it's tiny.
Thank you.
But it used to have a bunch of, used to have a couple windows that look like they relate to a stair or something in the inside?
That is where the stair is. It had a window that broke the gutter line on the second floor. That would have been the landing of a U-shaped stair. And then it had a stair down to the basement. The client does not intend to finish the basement, so the stair down is not something that they want any focus drawn to from the main entranceway. So we just removed that window altogether. Plus, I didn't think it really helped that elevation in terms of its regularity and its rhythm and the pattern of the regularity of the house all the way around. So it just seemed kind of awkward.
And it looks like something was taken off of the south elevation that projected out, if I compare the two.
Yes.
That other room was taken out? Okay.
Yeah.
There's a balcony over there.
Is that the widow's
There's
walk
a
or
little
whatever you
bump
call it?
out, and it had like a Juliet balcony
Juliet
above
balcony.
it.
Okay. And the building's lower. Was that a bulk issue or just a roof line issue?
It was an issue trying to create more of a true French mansard roof. I thought it was looking
So it
kind
was
of
an aesthetic issue, not a bulk
Barney,
related issue.
Dutch colonial-y.
Okay.
In the original petition, the architect did make an effort to align the doors and the windows, even though, as you mentioned, the doors may have only been 6 feet tall. I noticed now in the center portions of your south and north elevation, the door is lower than the windows. Wouldn't that be a custom-sized door, so that the window and door
That's
height
something
could
I
align?
really struggled with, trying to make it, you know, trying to reconcile it with the original drawings and the original intent. And the first floor ceiling height is 10 feet, and we tried 6-8 door with the 2-foot transom, and, you know, we tried a lot of different ways, but we tried eliminating the transom and just doing a full height casement window, but the casement windows don't only go so high, and we kind of went around and around, and I consulted a lot of different people on it, and we thought that the best solution was to do an 8-foot door. And on the north elevation, it has a limestone surround around the central main door. And it seemed like that was a good solution to still get the height of the window with the transom, with the desired amount of glazing, and differentiate that door from the rest of the doors, because all of the windows essentially are looking like doors. And if we pulled it up, then the sill height came up, and that kind of ruined the aesthetic and the square kind of repetitiveness of the lights. So
So that's the case on all the doors around, on all the elevations. I noticed in the west elevation, that's also the case. The French doors are, the door and the window
Yes.
heights do not align anymore.
yes, the doors are all then 8 feet tall, and straight through the open courtyard garden, that window door configuration repeats on both sides of the hallway and all the way through, so.
And then do the muttons of the doors and the windows do not align then? Or, I mean, is it the intent for them to align?
The intent for them is to, if they could align perfectly, that would be wonderful. With the door heights and the transom and all of the different factors to be considered, I think they may not be exact, but I think they approximate that with in keeping the kind of square light pattern in the doors and the transom. I mean, you could do the door height taller and then have a squat little transom on the top, or you could have a foot of wall space above the thing and this much wall between a casing, you know, a casing and a crown molding, which is awkward, I think. So,
Would you consider custom height doors?
to have a door,
Well,
what
I'm
hei-
s-
at what
you're
height?
showing what, an 8-foot door, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Could you do an 8'6" door and line it up with the top of the transom?
An 8'6" door, let's see, does that line up with the top of the transom?
Well, or 8'7",
Or
whatever it might be.
whatever it would be to align with the window.
I mean, how many are we talking about?
Let's see, one,
There's
two,
quite a few actually, but
Well, at least the center
Front door.
doors, yeah.
seven,
which is
7 or 8 of
That's a
them.
lot of, that's a lot of doors.
There's a
They'll
lot
twist
of
them on.
doors and it's kind of, and they're kind of, and it's
which
kind
is
of a
the
tall
front,
door.
the north side or the
Yes, north elevation.
Okay.
Is that a major issue?
That's not I think that was originally a part of the intent, and the windows and the mutton and the horizontal aspect of that is such a strong feature of this design that I just found it a little strange that of all things, the door and the windows wouldn't align, especially since you could get a custom-sized door to align. And then
that
from the
was-
interior,
I'm
I
sorry.
mean, you look back at that area and you see the door and the flanking windows, and the doors are just, 6 inches, or the windows are 6 inches taller.
Well, and/or, it appears you don't have any kind of cover over the front door.
No, there is none.
I mean, there's an opportunity to put something that might be a copper or an Art Nouveau glass entry top that eliminated that space with something that gives you a couple few feet of cover at the door or something like
Mhm.
that. But
Part of the problem too, I mean, on the front door that's, I believe it's 5 feet wide, an 8'6" door would be grand and wonderful and might be great, but some of the doors around, off of the family room and on the south elevation are 4 feet wide. So to have a 2-foot door that's 8'6" is a little oddly proportioned, I would say.
So at the areas, like for example, the south elevation where there's the wing just a little bit to the right of the center wing, there's a window with 2 transoms over, two windows with transoms, and then the door, which is probably the 4-foot door that you're talking about. I mean, isn't that transom line, isn't that at 6'8"? So why couldn't you have a 6'8" door with the same size transom, height transom above it?
I think she said it was 6 feet.
Well, the original drawing had 6 feet, and we tried it with 6'8", but my client really doesn't want 6'8" doors.
But what is the top of the window height right now? The normal window, like the height between the window, top of the window head and the transom?
Let's see. Where the transom and the top of the window, I think it is 6'8".
I guess, so then that's just my, couldn't you
Right.
have a 6'8" door at those areas and then have the transom above it?
Well, we tried that, and my client did not want 6'8" doors, so.
So then the top of that window itself with the transom, do you know what the height of that is?
It's a 2-foot transom, so it's 8'8". So,
8'8".
so on that, on the north elevation, the main entrance, with the limestone surround, it kind of approximates, the overall composition of the door and the limestone, and the entrance itself kind of approximates the same height as the other windows.
I mean, I know it's a consent, yes or no, so to me, it just seems that that detail is something that I think if it was a regular petition, I would, question and, but
Well,
I don't know
think
what we
it's
do
probably
here if it's a yes or no, so.
I think it's probably safe to say that we like what's here, and that one just sort of stands out as something that looks like, you or your client or might want to consider, because it just glares out at some of us architects that, hey, what's, or
Right.
if the oval windows were in there, it wouldn't necessarily have that same relation, so, but since you put something in that's closer, that's really calling attention to it, we just want to make sure that,
Mhm.
You're not missing your own boat on that
Mhm.
feature.
I agree.
I have one more question, being the non-architect in the group. On the south elevation again,
Mhm.
over that center doorway, there are 3 windows on the second floor.
Yes.
And what is that in front of them?
That is the back service hallway's roof, and the windows that you see are on the back of the, on the other side of the courtyard.
Oh, okay, all right,
Yeah.
got it. Thank you, I sort of forgot about the courtyard.
That's fine. Any further questions? Okay. Do I hear a motion to approve this petition on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the changes that are shown on the new drawings that we received tonight.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstain?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Motion
much.
carries. Thank you very much for your time.
Oh, sure.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the opportunity for the public to address the board on any non-agenda items. Seeing that we have none. Any additional information from staff? None. Thank you. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Third.
Aye. Thank you.